Hi guys, and welcome back to on the Verge YouTube channel. I'm going to jump straight into it. So this one is all about prison versus solutions. So yeah, let's get on. Let's get on with it. So let's talk about a question that lies at the very heart of our justice system and social priorities. Not social, societal as well. Yeah, both. One that impacts not just governments and policymakers, but communities, families, and individuals as well. So, do we continue expanding our prison systems, building more high security facilities, increasing incarceration rates, or do we take a fundamentally different approach? One that prioritizes intervention, rehabilitation, and long term solutions that prevent people from ending up in prison in the first place. So, this isn't just a debate or me talking about crime and punishment. It's a question that forces us to examine our values as a society. So, do we believe, or do I believe in punishment for its own sake, or do we believe in the power of second chances? I mean, I do. Are we committed to addressing the root causes of crime, poverty, lack of education, trauma, addiction, and mental health struggles, or are we content with locking people away without addressing why they ended up there? This is where it starts. So, the answer to this question shapes the kind of communities we live in. So it determines whether we create a system that is truly focused on public safety and rehabilitation, or whether we continue a cycle of incarceration that does little to reduce crime in the long run. So yeah, yes. So today we're going to break this question down. We'll explore I'll explore the real impact of mass incarceration, the costs both financially and human of a prison first approach, and the alternatives that have been proven to work. So, most importantly, if we know that prevention is more effective than punishment, then why are we still building more prisons? Now, before I go any further, what I'm going to say, what I'm going to say is there are cases of extreme violence, mass harm, murder, national security threats, repeat predatory behaviour, where prison is not just necessary; it's the only way to ensure justice and protect the public. 100%, I agree with that. Again, I'll go into so much more, but I agree with that. So don't just think I'm just being one-sided. It's not. I'm just being open and transparent towards it all. So that being said, in many countries, including the UK, we're facing a fundamental paradox. So a contradiction at the core of our criminal justice policies. So on one hand, you have governments continue to allocate billions of pounds towards expanding prison systems, constructing new facilities, increasing capacity to incarcerate more people. Yet at the same time, they underfund or cut resources for the very programs that have been proven to prevent crime before it happens. And again, I'm speaking about early intervention services, mental health support, addiction treatment, youth mentorship, education, and employment. All these initiatives are being cut. They're constantly being cut. So, what I'll say. So this isn't just this. This isn't just me going on about policy or budget allocations. It's a matter of real lives, real communities, and the kind of society that we choose to create. So every pound spent on prison expansion is a pound not spent on addressing the root causes of crime, poverty, social inequality, trauma, and lack of opportunity. Every time a government prioritises incarceration over rehabilitation, it reinforces a system that punishes people after they've fallen rather than supporting them before they reach that point. Now, the consequences of this approach is it's profound. It's crazy at times. So families are torn apart, communities are destabilized, and cycles of reoffending continue. So instead of creating safer neighborhoods and areas, we often create that revolving door where people leave prison with little support, struggle to reintegrate, and end up back behind bars. So if we truly care about reducing crime, in improving public safety and building a fairer society, then we need to ask simple questions. And one of the questions we need to ask is, why do we continue pouring money into a failing system instead of investing in solutions that work? I would love somebody to answer the question. And yeah, I'd love to be able to sit down with the powers that be as well, but that's another story. So on this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into this issue. So we're gonna talk about the reasons why this approach of building more prisons is flawed. We'll talk about the evidence showing what actually works to reduce crime, and most importantly, what we can do about it. We'll talk about real world examples, not just this country, other countries. We'll look at the economic and social impact of our current policies and challenge some of the biggest misconceptions about crime and punishment. Let's start by understanding the current system in the UK. So why do we continue expanding prisons rather than prioritising solutions that address the root cause of crime? So on the surface, the rationale may seem straightforward, but when we examine it closely, we find that the justifications for mass incarceration are deeply flawed. There are four main reasons often cited for building more prisons instead of investing in alternatives. So one, it's immediate public safety. So the belief that locking more people up makes society safer. Two, political pressures. So the reality that being tough on crime wins, okay, and wins votes as well. The economic interest, the prison industry, and those who profit from incarceration. So the institutional systems as well. So that'll be the difficulty of changing long-standing systems and practices. So again, on the surface, these reasons might seem valid, okay, but if we just scratch a little deeper, those reasons start to fall apart. And again, I'll explain. So what we'll do is we'll take a deep dive into each point that I've just said, and we'll give real world examples to go with it. So one, does locking more people up actually make society safer? Okay, so let's go into this one. So at first, yeah, so at the first glance, you might think, yes, of course. If someone commits a crime, putting them in prison removes them from society and prevents them from committing further harm or further crimes. So, but yeah, what you have to understand is this is nothing but this is short-term thinking. So what happens when that person is released? Nearly 50% of adults released from prison reoffend within 1 year. Among those sentences of less than 12 months, that number rises almost 60%, and the numbers will be higher. That means that whatever we're doing inside prisons isn't stopping people from coming out and committing more crime uh, once they're released. Um, Now, a more effective strategy would involve tackling crime at its source. So through education, employment support, rehabilitation programs, targeted interventions for at-risk individuals. However, these long-term solutions require patience and investment, whereas building more prison cells provides the illusion of immediate action, shall we say. But what I'm going to do is now is I'm going to use you an example of Norway. So let's compare that to Norway, which has one of the lowest reoffending rates in the world. So their reoffending rate is around 20%. Now, you might ask why. So we're at 50-60% and they're at 20%. So, because Norway focuses on rehabilitation, not just punishment. So their prisons look nothing like the concrete cages we're used to seeing. So inmates receive education, job training, mental health support, everything they need to successfully reintegrate into society when they're released. And guess what? It actually works. Fewer people reoffend, which means fewer victims, which means fewer crimes, and less money spent on the justice system overall. So let's go on to number two, which was political pressures. So why do politicians keep pushing for more prisons? Here's something a lot of people don't realise. So crime and punishment are deeply political issues. So as an example, when elections roll round, the phrase tough on crime is an easy sell. So a politician gets votes by making people believe that harsher sentences and more prisons equal safer communities. This actual political pressure leads to policies that are prioritising punishment over prevention. So measures like mandatory minimum sentences, harsher policing, and increased prison construction are easier to sell to the public than comprehensive social reform. But the data simply does not back that up. In reality, most crime stems from poverty, lack of education, addiction, mental health struggles, trauma. However, the reality is that the most effective crime reduction strategies, such as early intervention, restorative justice, and community-based rehabilitation, requires a shift in public perception and political courage. We're just treating symptoms instead of curing the disease. So we have to cover and give an example of this. So one of the examples is the war on drugs. So both in the UK and worldwide. So the idea was that if we crack down hard and gave harsh sentences and more policing and bigger prisons, we would reduce drug related crime. Okay, but decades later, drug use has not significantly decreased. Instead, what we've done is fill prisons with people suffering from addiction, who then get released with little no support, reoffend, and go back in. Number three, so that was the economic interest. So, who actually benefits from more prisons? So here's where things get even more complicated. So there are industries that profit from mass incarceration. Private prison companies, construction firms, even some corporations that use prison labour. So there is money to be made in keeping prison populations high, and that money influences policy. So in the UK, this is an issue because private prisons literally make money based on how many inmates they hold. There are financial interests at play, believe me. So prison construction is expensive, and there are powerful industries that benefit from government contracts to build and maintain these facilities. So one of the things that I looked up the other day was H.M.P. BERWYN, I think that's how you say it, which is BERWYN. So that opened up in 2017, and it cost approximately around 250 million to build. Let's not forget the average cost of keeping one person in prison for 1 year is about £40,000. However, the same economic investment directed toward crime prevention, such as funding schools, social services, and job training programs, just those as an example, would generate sustainable employment opportunities while also reducing crime. The problem is that while prisons create short-term financial benefits for certain industries, and prevention strategies require shifting priorities in a way that challenges entrenched economic interests. Now, I'm going to the final stage, which was the institutional system. Now, here's a question. Why is it so hard to change the system? So, the final reason why we keep building prisons instead of investing in solutions is simply that change is hard. And again, in all walks of life, people will say change is hard. There's also there's also resistance to change within the system itself. So many policymakers, law enforcement officials, judicial figures, they've spent their careers operating under the assumption that more prisons equal better public safety. But let's shift now towards a rehabilitation-first approach, which doesn't require only legal and structural changes, but also a fundamental transformation in the mindset. Now, again, we're going to give another example here. So, another example, which was on when Portugal decriminalized drugs. So Portugal actually took a radical step in 2001, where they decriminalized the use of all drugs and focused on treatment instead of punishment. And guess what? Drug-related deaths, HIV infection rates, and overall drug use decreased. It took political courage to make that change. But today, Portugal is actually held up as a global example of how shifting resources and punishment to prevention actually works. Now, when we look at these four reasons together, it becomes clear that ongoing expansion of prisons is not a necessity. It's not a necessity. It's a choice. It is a choice driven by fear-based politics, economic incentives, and institutional activity, rather than by evidence of what actually works to reduce crime. Now, if we want a justice system that truly prioritises public safety, fairness, and rehabilitation, we need to challenge these justifications and push for policies that invest in prevention, support, and long-term solutions, rather than just looking the other way and locking people away. Okay. Now, you kind of can see where I'm going with this, and you can see where I've actually laid out the problem. So I've told you of evidence, of other countries and what they're doing. But now what can we do about it? So one of the things that we can do is we can advocate for policy change. We need to push our governments to reallocate funding from prison construction to preventative measures like education, which increase funding for schools, after school programs, and vocational training. This can actually give young people better opportunities and reduce their risk of becoming involved in crime in the first place. Mental health services. Many individuals in the justice system suffer from untreated mental health conditions. Expanding access to therapy, crisis interventions, and community-based mental health care would prevent many of these people actually entering the system in the first place. We also substance abuse treatment. So instead of criminalizing addiction, we should advocate for drug treatment programs that address the root causes of dependency and reduce drug-related crime. We also need to speak about social services and housing support. So homelessness and unstable housing are major drivers of criminal behaviour. So we need to be investing in housing first initiatives and social support systems so they can dramatically reduce crime rates. We then go on to supporting community-based programs. So that would be the likes of mentoring programs, after-school activities, job training. These initiatives have been proven to reduce crime. We also need to raise awareness. The more people, the more people that understand the real issues behind crime and incarceration, the more pressure we can put on politicians to change the system. The other thing you can do, you can vote for change. You can support leaders who understand that being smart on crime is better than just being tough on crime. Now, there's an argument, and there'll always be an argument, because everybody has a choice. And everybody has a choice of what you say and what you do and what policies you want to make, and it's collective as well also. But governments have a choice. They can continue to throw money at a broken, punitive system, or invest in meaningful solutions that prevent crime and reduce reoffending. Advocating for policy change means demanding that our leaders take the smarter, more effective path, one that strengthens communities instead of just expanding prisons. To me, it makes no sense to keep throwing billions at prisons when the evidence is overwhelmingly clear. Investing in people, in opportunities, and in the communities is far more effective at reducing crime and creating safer societies. We have decades of research, real world examples, and lived experiences that all point in the same direction and come to the same conclusion. Punishment alone does not break the cycle of reoffending. Listen to me again. Punishment does not break the cycle of reoffending, but support, rehabilitation, and prevention does. If we truly care about safety, justice, and fairness, we must rethink our entire approach to crime and punishment. We need to stop relying on incarceration as a default response, and instead we should channel our resources into proven solutions, quality education, youth intervention programs, mental health services, addiction treatment, and employment pathways. These investments are what can reduce crime at its root, preventing harm before it happens rather than reacting to it after the fact. We need to build stronger communities, not just bigger prisons. Let's create a system that doesn't just punish mistakes but helps people rebuild their lives. Let's ensure that justice is not about retribution, but about restoration, where victims, communities, and those who have offended are given the support they need to move forward in a way that truly makes society safer. Because at the end of the day, we have a choice, and some will say you have a choice to offend or not offend or commit crime. But do we keep pouring money into walls and bars, locking people away without addressing the reasons they ended up there in the first place? Or do we invest in people, in their potential, in their ability to change, and in a society that values prevention over punishment? Guys, remember, prevention is better than the cure. The answer is clear. So guys, thanks for watching. I'll be covering many more topics in the future, so if you want to see them, then please comment, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take care.